All right, everybody, you better get ready for a Mark 1 Mod A episode of the 3 of 7 podcast where the team gets in and Chad and Chili go off the rails with some deep thought. Kristen and Blake try to bring it back in the lines. They do a pretty good job, but not as good as Chad and Chili did. So this episode is brought to you by one of our good friends who owns a company called Salty Britches. If you guys run, backpack, surf, any kind of activity that generates friction and causes chafing, I would highly suggest you getting a tube of Salty Britches anti-chafing cream to throw in your kit, to have it when you need it. Let me tell you what, chafing sucks. I got my fill of chafing in SEAL training, and I don't ever want to chafe again, which is why I'm such a huge advocate for Salty Britches. I have applied Salty Britches at the beginning of a 100-mile race, and it has stayed on and worked for 24 hours straight of running without having to reapply it. That's what sets us apart from all other anti-chafing cream out there. Not only does it work, but you don't have to keep putting it on over and over again. You put the stuff on, it's good to go. Another way I love to use Salty Britches is I go ahead and coat my entire foot in a thin layer of Salty Britches, pull my sock on, put my boot on, and it's going to keep me from getting hot spots. It's going to keep me from getting blisters, especially if your feet get wet. It provides a nice barrier between your skin and that moisture to keep your feet from getting all sogged out. Old Blake over there, he tends to get trench foot every now and then. So you got to start putting Salty Britches on your feet, man. Check them out at getsaltybritches.com. Go follow them on Instagram at getsaltybritches. I will attach a link to their website in the show notes of this episode. Salty Britches is the #1 anti-chafing cream on the market today. I know because I have used it in extreme environments, and it's never let me down. Thanks, Salty Britches, for sponsoring the 3 of 7 podcast. First of all, you don't tell me what you don't tell me what I can do anyways. Everybody, welcome back to the 3 of 7 podcast. You know, the 3 of 7 podcast, if you're new to the show, we have a few different types of episodes on the 3 of 7 podcast, and I'm mentioning this because I just added a new one. The comms check, which is what we're doing today, is us, the team here at 3 of 7 Project. Me, Blake, Chili, and Krista. And it's where we talk about important topics. And we have interview-style shows. The last interview we did was with Laura and Glenn Gettrell. And those are long form where we get someone else's story. And the newest addition I just added was these little 1 minute with Chad shows. They're not actually just 1 minute. They're somewhere between 1 and 5 minutes where I just come on and share with you whatever I'm currently struggling with or thinking about, or some lessons learned or something that I wrote. And those are just short form, get something to think about and go on, you know? So that's the 3 types of shows that we have here on the 3 of 7 podcast. You know, which leads me into the next thing I wanted to say, because I've had about literally 200 people hit me up in the last 2 days and tell me about this fake Instagram account that's out, that's trying to sell people something on Look, the reason I moved the 1 minute with Chad deal from Instagram to the podcast is because I would rather talk to you guys that listen to the podcast. Instagram is compromised. Instagram is, it's just so fickle. And if you're listening to this podcast, that tells me something about you. It tells me you intentionally found the podcast, that you got on your podcast app, that you found the show you wanted to listen to, and you hit play. And so I would rather put it there, because the things I think a lot about on those 1 minute with Chad episodes, those are important things to me. And I'm just sick of using Instagram, man. I'm just sick of it. It's just compromised. It's just, they refuse to verify that account that I have on there. And every time I turn around, there's 5 people that haven't copied my account. I don't even care. I'm just sick of it. So that's why I moved that 1 Minute with Chad stuff from Instagram to the podcast, because I care about you guys that listen to the podcast, and I think you're a better class of people than is on Instagram.
Well, and also the messages about that there's a fake account out there, you can stop sending those. And I know a lot of people that are sending them aren't even listening to this, but everybody's aware that there's fake accounts made. And if you get a message and you aren't smart enough to figure out, hey, this ain't actually Chad, well, then that's on you. Like,
first off, if you get a message from Chad, you better just go ahead and say this ain't Chad.
That's what I was about to say.
Yeah,
if you ever get a message from me on Instagram, you can pretty much guarantee it's not me, unless I'm responding to you or something that you sent me.
Well,
right?
But certainly if you're asking for money or whatever these freaking things do, I mean, all you have to do is click on the account and go, oh, this is a fake account. I don't know. It's just like,
I'm going to start using the Instagram for one tool only, to spread the gospel, to spread Jesus and my faith. And that's about the only message that I'm going to put out on there. I mean, maybe here and there I'll make a post with some thoughts or something. I'm in a season right now that I'm sick of it. And I'll probably come out of that at some point. But right now I'm in a season that I'm over it. So thank you guys for joining in on the podcast. This is what we like to do. This is how we like to communicate. And if you hear me or Krista or Chili or Blake on here, you can be assured it's us. All right. We had a really difficult mission on the basic course this past weekend. It was the first basic course that we've done in some legit winter environment, which it was April.
Yeah.
We didn't expect that. We were looking forward to a little bit of mild weather, and Winter Storm Inez descended on us. Probably my biggest lesson learned from this past basic course was that the wind can't blow when it's snowing.
Yeah. I can't believe y'all never knew that.
Yeah, Blake taught us that.
Yeah.
When it's snowing, the wind can't blow.
what are you talking about?
So not true.
Well, it can only blow in a blizzard. It can't just blow in the snow. If the snow's just falling, the wind can't blow.
Are you ignorant?
But if it's blowing while it's snowing, then it's a blizzard. But if it's just snowing, the wind, it's impossible for it to blow until it turns into a blizzard.
Yeah.
Y'all didn't know nothing about that. Y'all don't think deep enough to understand. That's you and Chili's problem. Y'all don't think deep enough.
Well, the cold, that type of cold complicates everything. I don't know what kind of issues you guys experienced in that type of cold, but things you don't think about. Zippers freeze.
Yeah, totally.
The lid to your water bottle freezes and you can't get the top off your water bottle, and you wake up in the morning and your boots are frozen. Mm-hmm. And it was really nice having that weather though out there with that team. First of all, that was Team 20. 20 was a really strong team anyways. And it was nice for me as an instructor to have the weather, because the worse the weather is, the less I have to work as an instructor to try to create some adversity for the team, mm-hmm. right? Or push them to the whatever their limit is. The weather does that for you. Seriously, probably the biggest lesson for me on that trip as an instructor was I felt the full weight of being an instructor out there because of the weather. And when we were going up in altitude, I knew the conditions were going to get worse. Well, our students, we are in a way committed to their safety, right? And so I knew that entire day was going to be an assessment of the environment, and just to determine whether it was safe to continue on or to stop or if we were going to have to turn around and go all the way back down. And it'll wear you out as an instructor. And so I was just reflecting on that. Man, I wonder why nobody else does what we do. Oh, this is why. Nobody else is going to take on this responsibility. Nobody else is going to do this work this freaking hard to pour into people. They just ain't going to do it, man.
Yeah.
And the other place that I really feel the weight of being an instructor is on the Alpine trip.
Yeah. Big time.
Yeah. Yeah, in that environment. So, did you guys learn anything from the basic course?
I mean, I think similar to what you were saying about like when we came through that gap and it was so windy, there was some times where I was questioning, like, man, when are we gonna have to head back down because it was getting so bad. But that's off the cuff. That's all I've got right now.
Dang,
Yeah,
Blake.
He fizzled out on
You
that.
haven't done much reflection, have you?
No, when you get home with 2 kids, there ain't much time for reflection. You just kind of jump into things.
Yeah, I think I haven't reflected enough to really have a great response, but off the cuff as well. I think I realized quickly I like snow better than rain.
Yeah.
And I was actually thankful that it was snowing instead of raining, and we got sleet too. But so that was different. That was different to not only hike but camp in that. And it was beautiful. And so I think I kept reminding myself, not even as a trick to distract myself, but just kept being drawn to sort of positive framing of the situation, that this is gorgeous. Like, it was beautiful. I mean, it was hard. It was cold. It was rough. It was great to experience a new environment. Well, that's one of the things I love about doing these trips is each one's different. You have different group of people. You have different dynamics. You have different weather. Things you can't predict or expect, like you said, snow in April. Crazy. But it was gorgeous. And so I just found myself being really thankful to experience that, to be on the top of the mountain and just be covered with snow. And the next day, the final day, when we finally were leaving for the sun to come out, and it was just so bright because it's reflecting off the snow, and the sky was clear. The sun was finally out, and it was just gorgeous. And so it's just something to experience in the midst of adversity, so much peacefulness and beauty. So I think that's what struck me.
Yeah. It's the first time we had seen it up there in those conditions too, and it was absolutely beautiful. Especially that sunset on Saturday night was unbelievable. And
Krista was putting on her base layer when the sun was.
Oh yeah,
I probably
that's
missed that.
true. Yeah. So if you guys don't know what the basic course is, it is a school that we run, small teams. It's a mission in the backcountry, the wilderness, and we take a very limited amount of people out there. And you have to apply for it. And essentially what we're trying to drive home is not necessarily the skills of backpacking and survival. And you learn all of that because you have to learn all of that. But the emphasis is learning how to lead, how to be led, teamwork, communication, working through problems, coming up with solutions even when you have imperfect information. So those are the things that we try to drive home in the basic course, and all the backpacking skills and stuff like that are just a added benefit that you get from it. Are we going to release some fall dates sometime?
Yeah,
we might. So we might run a few courses this fall. The spring and summer courses are full. We only did 4, and we had over 500, probably around 500 people apply, and including what was left over from last year. But we'll release those. So stand by sometime within the next few weeks. We'll put those fall dates out if you want to come out. I want to talk real quick about something me and Chili talked about last night, and then we are going to go in and talk about building back from a setback or an injury. All right? We're going to just discuss that and see where it pans out. But Chili and I were talking last night. Chili, you want to tell the people what we were talking about?
Not really.
Well,
I mean, I don't, it's like, what do you say? And what's the conclusion that you need to lead people to? I mean, there isn't one. So,
well, me and Chili we're very alike. And what we were talking about, well, it makes sense that we're alike because I mentored him. I kind of raised him up. And so we see things and we feel things in the same manner. And,
I don't buy that.
We were talking about how we're both in this place right now where, we used to love ultra running and racing and maybe we still do, but over the last few years, those things have become, what would you say? Trivial. Those things have become trivial in light of what has and is continuing to unfold in the world. And it's kind of a weird feeling because we were talking about we just can't get excited about ultra running and stuff like we used to, like 3 years ago. That was all we wanted to do and share and talk about, and now it's just like, man, the state of humanity is not good. It isn't. I mean, I don't know. And here's the thing. You could say, well, let me look back in history. Well, the state of humanity has always been kind of in a place of turmoil, right?
Yep.
What makes it different now is the scale of it, the global scale. So back in other times in human history, if there was chaos existing somewhere, it was usually contained to a landmass or an area or something, or a tribe or a community. Because there was no technology, it wasn't allowed to spread across the face of the entire globe. But it's different. And it feels like Chili and I both feel like there's something building we can just feel it. There's something building. And Chili said a storm is coming.
Yeah. That's what I think. I mean, the trivial nature of running and working out and anything you like to do, you may be listening and be like, well, I don't think it's trivial. Well, it is. Even whenever I felt like it wasn't, because it was just what I was consumed by, it was still trivial. I mean, it's running. It's lifting weights. It's painting, whatever the crap you like to do. It's freaking trivial, man. It's all going to get burnt up and taken away from you. Like, all these things, you have to put some significance in it to live, but it don't mean nothing. Meaningless. Everything is meaningless, right? But it is difficult. Your perception changes at times because it's not any more trivial than it was. Like, it's not any more trivial now than it was 3 years ago. Mm-hmm. But something is different. And it may not be for everybody. In fact, I don't think it is. But it's like something is being revealed, is being uncovered. And it just makes it seem awfully silly to be putting all of your stock in running or whatever it is. Replace that with whatever your thing is.
I have also struggled with this over the last year or two now, because when I first got into this kind of arena, this public arena, right, and social media and podcasts and all this, it was all simply about inspiration, things that you can do that are gonna make you a better athlete or help you endure whatever the challenge is and this and that. And I like that stuff, man. I like that stuff. But because of what Chili's talking about, it's like I feel the same way, man. I feel like there's no meaning to that stuff right now because it's like there are so many other bigger things on the plate, on the table that need attention right now other than your inspiration to run an ultra marathon. And I don't like that. I wish I could I wish it was simple back a few years ago when that's the message that people were hungry for. Now people just want some hope just to keep living. Mm-hmm. A lot has changed in 3 years, man.
Well, and I think, I think we got to be careful too saying that so much has changed in the last 3 years. In a way it has, and in a way it hasn't. A lot of things you just maybe weren't aware of previously. Like the same type of stuff was going on for a long time.
Well, that's like I told you yesterday. I said I always think about in my mind. I just want to wake up one morning and like see the headline.
The crap has hit the fan.
Like okay, all right, let's get this over with.
Yeah, well, what
did you tell me?
That's what you desire because like you just want resolution. Even if it's a bad outcome, you're like, I just want it to be resolved because you feel like you're just waiting. But that's why it's always going to be carried out so painfully slow. It has to be so slow so you'll never get that moment. Because it is happening. But it's happening, it doesn't happen in a snap of a finger. It happens over years and years and years and years and years. So you can't just wake up one morning and go, oh, now
we're in it.
Now we're in it.
It's time to act.
We are in it. And we have been for a long time. But it's like you're not fully in it, And I don't know. Sometimes it sounds like we're talking in code and some people don't want to hear any of this. And the only reason I would really hesitate to even talk about it is just because it's hard to articulate.
Well, I have a conclusion.
Well, yeah, but I don't think a lot of people are in the same place that we're at. And, if you want to know what that feels like, think about yourself previously. Because I think more so you have to ask yourself the question, has situations changed or has my perception changed? And a lot of times it's just your perception. Like the crap that's going on when you just kind of blanket say what's going on in the world, it's been going on a long time. Way before we got real worried about it or concerned or focused on it. That's the thing. So it's more like our perception changed. Mm-hmm. But, maybe we're getting closer to reality. All I've figured out, if you'd say I'd figured anything out, is that, running's still important to do because you have to do things that you enjoy, and it's good. Well, I think running's bad for your health, but we'll talk about that later. But yeah, do stuff that's good for your health, exercise, take care of yourself. But I desire more so than being a better runner like I used to. I desire trying to focus on what is important.
Yeah.
And seek a closer relationship to God. And I want to devote my attention to what's important right now and not things that are ultimately meaningless. So when you get in that state and your perception changes in whatever way, boy, it makes...
Well, that's what I would ask is what is important right now? Is that any different than what was important 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 100 years ago?
Well, if you look at it in terms of the ultimate priority being your salvation and knowledge of Christ, then no. But other than that being the ultimate priority, that yes has been the same. Well, has not changed, but other things have changed in priority.
Well, I want to say too, I hope nobody takes from this that like, oh, I need to quit running or doing whatever my hobby is or that I enjoy. No, you just need to put it on the back burner if that's the most important thing to you. Like you have to reprioritize things.
Well, you said it best last night when you said you were talking about how people are look at you and say, well, you just don't seem passionate anymore. Mm-hmm. And it's not that you're not passionate anymore. It's the things that you
are passionate
about
have changed,
have shifted for a reason. Right?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think there's any less passion. If you look at running, you're like, oh, you're not as passionate as you were. Well, yeah, about that thing, because something shifted. So
I want to ask you two more level-headed individuals, Krista and Blake. As I think we can all agree, I hope we can all agree that there's some significant tension and evil in our current reality that is pretty significant, right? And it deserves attention. So what is should we just stay quiet about it? Like, if we see it, because this is a conflict we've had before on the podcast. It's like, how much do you shed light on this crap that's happening? Whether it's pedophilia or whether it is the erosion of liberty or whether it is the inflation and whatever is happening. Like, how much should you just stay quiet about that if you see it? Or do you actually shed some light on it and spend some time on that stuff?
I don't know. It's this format for me is hard. Just personally, this has been a challenge for me because I'm a slow internal processor. And so this is actually, being on the podcast is out of my comfort zone because I am a thinker and I think a lot. I have a lot of thoughts about this, but and
a podcast is not a good forum for that.
Well, no, I'm just saying. I'm just.
I agree with you.
Giving a preface of like my response because I have a lot of thoughts about this and I think about it all the time and so it's hard for me to just respond off the cuff, I guess, because I'm just giving a little preface that's just not my personality, and so it's hard for me because I want to like produce something in my brain and then like give a real clear answer. So that said,
well, that's why you're on the 3 of 7 podcast,
so I can grow.
It's just a conversation.
But I guess my first question is, what do you mean by should we talk about it? Because I think there are different ways to talk about it. Because one way is, I think the terms in which you perceive that or talk about it, Chad, is we should be talking about it on social media. You shouldn't have a private account. We should be talking about this on the podcast. We should be using our platforms. And that's a way to talk about things. But I think there are other ways to talk about it. Like there and other ways to deal with it and other ways to confront it. And I think a lot of that, and this isn't a mushy answer, but like in your day-to-day choices, like when you speak to people, when you engage somebody and you encounter a perspective in a conversation with somebody or in an interaction, like you're dealing with a business, like having those kind of face-to-face, more personal interactions, like that's where I feel like most of the change is going to happen is just through your daily engagement and showing up with integrity. Mm-hmm. And so to me, that's a way to talk about it without necessarily talking about it publicly or on a grand scale. And I think that, I think I've always, I don't know if I can say always, but for a long time, I have had just a perspective on life that every decision I make, it's moving in a direction. Like I never am staying neutral. I'm never staying in neutral. So every decision I make is moving me forward or moving me right, moving me left, moving me, in a particular direction. And I think that is how we shape culture, is with our decisions that we make and having integrity in every decision that we make. And so I think that for me, that's what I focus on. So I can have conversations, like I read a lot of books, and my husband and I, that's one of our favorite things to do is like listen to podcasts, read books, and we talk, like it's just, we're kind of, I don't know if you'd say nerdy like that, but we love to have deep conversations about culture. I love to think about culture, sociology, all that kind of stuff, patterns. And I think a great book right now, like I read recently, maybe a couple years ago, that kind of talks about the underpinnings of philosophically what's happening, ideologically what's happening in culture. There's a book called Cynical Theories by James Lindsay and Helen Pluckrose that kind of talks about kind of the theories, the critical theories. I know in the news a lot of times now you'll hear about critical race theory, but there are all these other critical theories other than that one that it comes out of postmodernism, which comes out of other things. And so it just kind of traces and helps you understand, like, you feel crazy in this world, like, what is going on? People are not rational anymore. And it just kind of explains that, like, oh, here's what's kind of the shift that's happening. And so I think those things are really helpful to understand. And you can have conversations about that to help you understand what's going on in culture. Why does it feel like all of a sudden, like, something's happening, something bad's about to happen? Well, this is, like Chili said, it's been moving this direction for quite a while now, and we just don't notice it. And so we can engage it on that level, but I can just also focus on day-to-day just having integrity and asking, like, you talk, Chad, a lot about just living by a standard.
Yeah.
And we talk about that, you have your creed that you've written, and as believers, we have a standard.
Yeah.
And that is one of the incredible things about being a follower of Christ is God is unchanging. So all this stuff that's shifting around us, it can feel crazy and chaotic and scary and like we've never confronted this before. It's worse than ever. But like Chili said, it's not really. Like throughout human history, this has been the way it is. We live in a fallen world. And so it's going to take different shapes and it's going to morph, and we're going to go through cycles throughout history. You can track historical cycles from, things falling apart, and then you have authoritarianism, totalitarian that rise up, and then another cycle. It's just a cycle that continues. And so as believers, we can get so frazzled and worried and panic, and the reality is we shouldn't be. Of all people, we shouldn't be, because we have an unchanging God. We have an unchanging standard. He's given us these tools and this framework to live by, and we just have to be faithful with that. And if we live lives of integrity and we live to that standard and we have faith in God and we trust that and we know He is in control, He holds all this in His hand, He's not scared about this. No. Like and so I think just if we trust that, then I think that's how a roundabout way of answering your question, like, should we be talking about this? How do we talk about this? I think that's what I focus on.
I think that's a great answer. I mean, your actions do speak louder than your words always. And not everyone has their own podcast, or, not everyone has the ability to do what we can do here with this. But, I want to, in a way, disagree with you on two things. Mm-hmm. You said you and Chili both have referenced, in terms of human history, this is part of cycle. No, it is different.
I would have to clarify that.
This is different because of technology.
It is and it isn't.
There's no other time in human history that you can compare what is happening on this scale. Humans were the same for thousands of years until just the last maybe 200 years. That's where all the progression has happened to turn it into this scenario that we have here that is different. I will agree with you in terms of saying, well, we as believers, we have no reason to be. You're exactly right. We have no reason. Look, Jesus says right here, and there shall be signs in the sun and the moon and in the stars, and upon the earth distress of nations with perplexity. Ha! Yeah, it says men's hearts failing them for fear and for looking after those things which are coming on the earth. This is literally fulfillment of biblical prophecy in my mind, what we see happening. What I'm worried about specifically, I guess I should have articulated this when I asked you the question. I am starting to see, and I think I believe, that there are consequences for our silence. All right? So if you did, and let me try to explain this to you in an example. When all the vaccine stuff was going on, I chose to say, if you want to get a vaccine, get a vaccine. I'm all for that. But if you don't want to, you shouldn't have to. So I chose to take a neutral ground on that, right? Where what I actually believed was, you have a pharmaceutical company that you've been watching their commercials for years, and every time you see a commercial for one of their drugs, what does it say at the end of the commercial? It says all these lists of things that this drug might cause, right? All these lists of side effects. So you know the things that they are putting out, unless it's something that you legitimately have to take to stay alive, there can be some pretty severe consequences for taking that drug. And these are the same pharmaceutical companies that now pushed out a vaccine in 8 or 9 months, and there's zero accountability for it. They could literally injected you with something that killed you instantly, and you can't sue them. You can't do anything about it. These are corrupt companies. It's quite obvious that they are all about money, and they have very, very bad track records. And what I actually believed is if you get this vaccine, you are an idiot. If you go stand in line to get this vaccine from a pharmaceutical company, like, you're putting your life in the hands of an organization that has a absolutely terrible track record, and there is zero accountability. Now, if I would have said what I actually believed, would that have influenced someone that is now currently experiencing debilitating repercussions from standing in line to get a shot of some medicine, vaccine, that they just trusted them blindly? Would that, if I would have said what I've actually believed, would that person that is now having significant health issues, would they have said, well, dang, I heard Chad say it's not smart to go do this because of this, this, and this, and that makes sense, so I'm not going to do it.
Well,
I don't
think people should base their medical decisions off of your advice either.
But it's common sense. It's common sense. It's literally me just saying what I actually believe, to not even what I believe, what I have gathered and formulated a common sense opinion on. And so, should I have what are the consequences of me not sharing something that I saw as being a potential huge issue, and instead I chose the neutral ground on it? That's something that's hard for me to reconcile with, is choosing a neutral ground for the sake of staying neutral, not pissing people off. But then ultimately, what are the consequences? And if you look at it even on a larger scale, what are the consequences for our up-and-coming generations of children? Are they going to look back when they're 40, 50 years old, and whatever the world is that they are now having to live in, are they going to say, Granddad, why didn't you speak up? Why didn't you say what you saw? Now look what you've left me with. It's hard for me to reconcile with that, man. That's why there's a big part of me that says, I gotta say things that I believe, and I gotta say them because there's consequences if I don't say them for other people.
Well, what would you have said different? There's so much to respond to what you just said, but
Yeah.
but what would you have said different? I mean,
Looking
People
back,
should still have the ability to get it if they wanted to.
Looking back, it's hey, it's your choice.
But I think
but let me tell you the conclusions that I've drawn. I have a fairly common sense brain. That's one of a gift that I have, of being able to have common sense. I would have said, do what you want, but I'm here to tell you, it's not smart for you to go and get that thing.
So you would have just said the same thing that you said, but in my opinion, it's not a good idea to get it.
Exactly. But I left that off because I wanted to hold neutral ground. You know? And now, I mean, I know people in my life that their lives have changed because of side effects from this vaccine. People that might have been influenced by something that I said, but I chose to hold the neutral ground.
Yeah.
That's what I'm conflicted with in my heart.
Yeah. Well, and I think I don't want to miss your heart, because I think that in this discussion, you know, people can hold different opinions and get really passionate about it, but I think that it is important to focus on people's hearts and the reason they're passionate, because I think underneath all of that is you do not want to harm people. Like, and your concern is maybe by not doing this, or by doing this, I'm hurting somebody. By speaking, I'm hurting somebody. By not speaking, I'm hurting somebody. So I do think I recognize underneath all of that it's showing that you really care deeply about people. So I don't want to miss that. But I think it's a complicated thing, because like, I think how you say something is important. So like you said, I think at the heart of what you're communicating and would want to communicate to people are good things. It's a good opinion. I think you have strong reasoning behind it. But I think calling people idiots if they go against your opinion is not good.
Yeah.
And I think people wouldn't respect and listen to you. And if they make a decision, then basically you've just told them, if you go against what I'm saying, you're an idiot. And what kind of weight and guilt is that going to put on somebody? So I don't think that's good. So I think how you say something and share an opinion is important.
I agree.
Goes back to that idea of humility too. Like, I feel really strongly about this. I think I have really good reasoning behind this, but I also recognize I could be wrong. I don't know all the information. Because on the flip side, you know, and I'm not sharing my particular choices or opinions about that issue, but I think it is important to see on the flip side, there are people, and were people that had just as strong opinions and could reason them. They could reason through those things and say, what if by not getting this vaccine or encouraging people to get this vaccine, I'm harming people, you know? And what if we realized by getting the vaccine, we actually did help in this situation? And what am I going to say to my grandchildren if it turned out that I should have gotten the vaccine and I didn't encourage it? And what am I going to say to those kids? So I think, you know, I think it's just really complicated. And the reality is we all don't know all the information, and people had to make the best decisions that they could. And there are people who I know, because I know one of the people you're talking about who has side effects now. And I know that she didn't want to get it, but she did it for her work. And I know there are a lot of people that got stuck between a rock and a hard place and had to make some decisions. So I think some of it is also, I think a more crucial issue in this whole discussion, a more dangerous issue perhaps, is the lack of the freedom to speak about it and have differing opinions, and for the public square, because this stuff, technology, social media, podcasts, all that stuff, this is like talking about how things shift throughout history, and you're like, things are different right now because of technology. And you're absolutely right. I would agree with that. Like, cause this, what we do now, how we communicate, this is the public square. It used to be people would physically go to a public square, and that's where they would have discussions. They would share things and talk. That was the public way of communicating. And this is how we do it now. And it's so kind of weird and broken. And so I think that this public square is a place where we can talk about these things, but I think it is a very complicated topic, because people did have to, you know, my son's in the military, and he was faced with either you get discharged or you get a vaccine.
Yeah.
and he
There should be accountability for
and
that, by the way.
he did not want to get a vaccine. He, did not want to get it. And so, but he had to make a choice. And so I think, and he's not an idiot. And so I think that it's just, I don't know, it deserves a lot of nuance. It deserves a lot of humility from the people participating in it. But I think the most dangerous thing in all of it probably is locking people out from that public discussion.
And that was locked. That discussion was locked down, man.
And I think that for me is the largest concern, is that people can't have discussions and disagree with each other and hold different opinions. And I don't even care what side you're on. Like, we all should agree that people should be able to hold different opinions. Like, that's a healthy society has to operate that way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Solid. Blake, you got anything?
Well, I mean, there's a lot, and it kind of shifted, but I'll say that I've always thought, I'm not good at convincing people, I guess, but I've always thought that running and extreme exercise and all of that stuff, I've always thought is trivial. And you say there's a lot of tension in the area. You say there's a lot of evil, but
you're correct.
There's always been a lot of that in the air. And I agree with Chili that it is your perspective on. I'm talking.
It was not on the. When I was 10 years old, it won't in the air like it was now.
There was just as much
changed,
evil.
Man. Yep.
Present when you were 10 as
That's
is
wrong.
now.
I don't believe that.
That's wrong. That's slap wrong.
The book of Ecclesiastes, I mean, since the beginning of time.
Ecclesiastes 11, right? Yeah.
It's all. It's just that is
futile.
There was
everything.
What do you think? The kingdom of Satan has grown, and now there's more evil power in the air than there was in the Garden of Eden? Or
I think yes. I think it is. It is.
I'm gonna tell you too. When you go, your perception changed because more evil forces on this earth went operational, and it was evident to you. I'm telling you, it's been going on like in. And when you said too, I gotta say, when you said that humans are different now because of technology, nope, the same things, man.
What is happening is
different. Sure,
not the human heart.
But it's still the same thing that's always went on. It's just different mediums now, different.
It's on a whole nother scale, man.
Sure,
the scale is what makes it different.
But it's scaled through time. I mean, and it's going to keep progressing at an exponential rate. That's why in the last 200 years we've accelerated more than the first the last 2000 or whatever.
Well, and I guess a philosophical question too is like, what is evil? Like, it's easy to say, oh, this is more evil or this is evil because it's this big public, systemic, global thing happening. But evil's in the human heart, And so, is there more evil? And would evil forces would they prefer to get us distracted? Like maybe that. If we're distracted by that, if we're focused on that, we're focused on others, and we're focused on, these things happening out there and these big ideas. Is that distracting us from, is that a really good strategic thing to do? If you've ever read Screw Tape Letters, is that a good strategic thing to do to distract from how I'm showing up in my community right now, what's going on in my own heart that's taking me away from God or breaking my relationships with others in my life. And so I think even thinking about like that scale of evil, how do we gauge that?
How are you measuring the grandness of evil? By the number of evil acts that are carried out, or the degree at which you consider them evil, or what is greater evil?
Do you think that there are more evil people?
Yeah, there's more people on the earth.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, yes. So the scale of it, and also the grandness of it. Evil can have a much broader, one evil person can have a much broader impact now than ever before in human history in terms of how many people they can affect. So
Genghis Khan had a big impact.
Yeah, but it wasn't global.
He wiped off like friggin' 10% of the population of the world.
So here's I said I had a conclusion to this. This is ultimately, and you guys referenced the book Ecclesiastes earlier. He gives us a solution there too, right?
Well, not really. It goes back and forth the whole book.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in the end, he gives this is the conclusion of the matter. And I wish I had it turned to in my Bible. I would read it to you. But the conclusion is ultimately, in light of Chili and I knowing that the storm is coming, what do? Well, we talked about it last night. You've got you. I'm trying to think how to put this.
This illustrates it perfectly. I feel simultaneously compelled to wreak havoc as much as I possibly can, whatever that looks like, while also questioning to what degree I'm supposed to get involved in stopping the inevitable. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, that's true. You have to focus on, you really have to focus on your relationship with Christ. I mean, that is the ultimate priority. In the midst of all of this, you've got to lean into Christ. Because like Krista said earlier, that is the one part of the equation that will never change, right? He will never change. All right. And if you want to do something else, help people. Help people. Which, that was the ultimate conclusion I came to yesterday is, what am I doing in the midst of this feeling? And I'm doing, I think what I should be doing is I'm leaning into my understanding of Christ, and I, along with you guys, we've all dedicated our careers, our lives, our time to helping people through the things that we do. I mean, the basic course is a wonderful example of that. That's what it's all about, is helping people, building them up, giving them the tools that we think will serve them well in the midst of everything that's happening. And so that to me is what I should be doing, because it doesn't feel good to me to be in this limbo. It doesn't feel good, man.
Yeah, I think as you're talking, I was thinking about what do we end with? And I think it is fear God and obey His commands. And what does He command us to do? In the book of Micah, it says to do justice, love mercy, and walk humbly with your God. And I think that that's really what we need to focus on. Do justice, love mercy, and walk humbly with your God. And there are a lot of things that, because we might feel like a righteous anger or see wrong being done. Well, that can be a good thing, because it's saying, I want justice, but I also love mercy, and I'm going to walk humbly. And in the midst of this, we can get really pulled in one direction and get far off what actually obeying God means. We might say, obeying God is like charging in, like bringing in the cavalry. And what obeying God means sometimes is being quiet, is loving your neighbor, and discerning what is the Holy Spirit speaking to you. Like, not everybody's not going to look the same for everybody. And so with what you have, the platform you have, the position you're in, the relationships you have, it's going to look different for you than it is for other people. But I think we all can say, well, what God has stated to me in Scripture is do justice, love mercy, and walk humbly with your God. So,
well,
yeah, I mean, before Chad cut me off earlier,
I knew you were still mad about that.
No. What I'm saying is the evil that is on the earth is relative to the time it's in. Maybe it's greater than it was when Cain killed Abel early in the Bible, but when God reveals something to you and you say, I feel this coming, and you ask the question, should we talk about it? Or, yeah, I mean, maybe you should. Maybe this platform, you talking about it sheds light and helps other people, but you also need to do something about it. You can't just say, God showed me this, and let me tell y'all about it.
Don't just sit and think all day without doing something.
And
agreed.
I would say that we need to be doing more. Yeah. Like, Krista said, it can be day-to-day things, like when people tick you off, still loving them. I mean, that can be hard, but very impactful to the person.
I do that to you guys all the time.
That is ticking you off, because
that's
then
bringing God's kingdom.
it is.
That's bringing God's kingdom.
And that person that ticked you off one day is going to look back and say, man, I remember what I did to Krista, and that was not right. But I remember how she treated me, and that's going to have a bigger impact than whatever else you think might be actually serving God. And, we talked, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks ago that we're going to go down to Rome and we're going to hand out these homeless backpacks. And we ain't done it yet.
Yeah.
And Kat just came in here last night and she said, hey, I heard y'all say you was going to do this on the podcast. Y'all ain't done that yet. I said, touche. I mean, we'll go buy the stuff Monday. So Wednesday, that's what we're going to do. It's unset that we felt that way, that we need to go do that, and we still ain't done it. I mean, I'm speaking for me and Chad here. I don't know how y'all felt about it, but Chad felt pretty strongly about it, and I did too. I've been reading this book, and it's in there, and I keep thinking about it, Doing something more than what we're doing now instead of going and running. You go run, and you get a little bit of physical fitness, and
Well, you can actually do both.
who really cares? Yeah, you
can
could
actually
run.
do both.
Why don't
could
we
run
just
and-
set up a date where we'll just say we'll be at a certain spot, and if you need food, we'll just you come to us and we have pizzas or something.
Yeah, we'll figure out how to do it, but we're doing something Wednesday.
Do
and
that
and
regularly.
We ain't
Got
it
to
ain't-
come up with ideas.
It ain't running out in solitude away from everybody else. If we want to run, it's going to be downtown, and we're going to try to make a difference on somebody's life.
Go run on the track.
Yeah.
We'll have people. We'll just meet there next Wednesday. Come on, run with us at the track, and then not only if you're homeless, only if you need food, we'll feed you.
Well, they don't need to be burning any more calories than they have to.
Well, I appreciate y'all letting me get this stuff off my mind today. Some people will like this episode. Some people will hate it. That's the way these episodes go. But the great thing about having a podcast, you get to talk about what you want to talk about. That's the great thing about having a podcast. I really do want to get to this topic that Krista brought up earlier, and we're not going to get to it today. But y'all don't let me forget this, because I think it's a valuable topic. Building back from or recovering from a setback, or building back from a setback or an injury. We'll cover down on that sometime in the next couple episodes, because that's a really good topic. I did not anticipate what we just talked about to go on for an hour, but it did. So we love you guys. We hope you got something out of the episode. If you did, share it with somebody that you think will also get something out of the episode. That's the only way this grows, is if you guys share it and talk about it, and reach out to us and let us know what you thought. If you disagreed, if you agreed, if you have some piece of wisdom you think we should need to hear. Enough said.